T. Towson enjoying the summer months and doing all that good stuff. And, of course, the Orioles back in the Bronx where it's very, very familiar, not only for them but also for this guy. I don't think I've ever done radio. It's been 25 and a half years now. I'm a huge fan of this guy, although I'll probably make him blush before it's all over with. He is a longtime sports writer. I'm just calling him legendary New York sports writer because he's probably done everything. He's probably one of the encyclopedias in the world of boxing and a longtime columnist. Boy, my God, the New York Post, the Newsday, the ESPN thing. He's the Oyster Bay Bomber out on Twitter, now covering the New York Yankees up in the Bronx for the New York Times, as well as formerly at ESPN. We welcome Wallace Matthews. He says, I know him well enough now to call him Wally. What's going on, man? A pleasure to have you aboard.
Well, I guess I feel you. I know you're good enough to call you Ness.
Oh, there you go. All right. Well, then we can get after this thing
man.
here. But
boy, I didn't realize how old I was. I did all that stuff. My God.
Yeah, I know. It's killing all of us, right?
Scary.
I mean, 25 years into this, I'm like, what the hell happened to all these years? I know one thing that hasn't happened, bro. I'm releasing my Peter Principles book here this summer. The Orioles have never won a championship. The Yankees have won more than I can count. 6, 7, I don't know how many it's been in the last 25 years. You haven't always been on the beat there, but you've always been around the beat there. And it feels to me like this thing's starting to go back in that direction where it's going to get lopsided, where this weekend y'all are going to be asking Manny Machado how he's going to look in pinstripes, and we're going to sit around and for 18 months.
That's already considered. That is that's done. That's a done deal according to people in New York. Manny's going to be a Yankee. Mike Trout is going to be a Yankee. Like any up and coming players, Giancarlo Stanton is going to be a Yankee. Everybody's coming to the Bronx at some point.
Well, Machado's hitting 215 right now. You can have him if you want to give us some of those prospects.
We got a third baseman who's on his way to 215.
Well, this is an interesting time, I think, for the Yankees, right? Because this is, of all the years you've covered the Yankees, maybe even going back into the early 90s when the Jeters and the Posadas and those guys came, Pettit and those guys came along, this is the finest young crop of Yankee talent. And unlike those franchises that were weighted down with some Cecil Fielders and some Boggs and some Clemens and some money, this team is a little bit more unencumbered than it's been. And it feels to me like, look out for the Yankees the next 6 or 7 years. The years of them winning 95 plus, it looks to me like for a little while that's going to happen now.
Well, that's the plan. I mean, honestly, this is the first time since, and I've been around them since 95. I would say, not as a beat writer, but on and off as a columnist, and for the past 8 years, on a daily basis. This is the first time that they've actually done a real reset, of the whole team. We've always had, as you say, the old guys. I mean, if it wasn't the core four, then you moved on to, Mark Teixeira, Alex Rodriguez, Carlos Beltran. It was one old retread after another. This is the first time they pretty much have cleaned the place out and started fresh. And I'll tell you what, I think the team has developed quicker than even the Yankees thought they would. I mean, I think the plan here was that this team was being built for 2018 and 2019, not for 2017. So, what they've done so far, I think, is a surprise to everybody. But yes, this was the plan. However, let me just point out that, since May, I think it's May 14th or something, they were the best, they had the best record in baseball. But since then, they're pretty much a 500 team. So it's possible that we're seeing a little market correction here.
Well, and in that case, I mean, it all really goes back to last summer, right? And in last summer, they told their fan base via you and the media and via their actions, hey, we're gonna pack it in for a year here because it's going the wrong direction. And we play you guys 6 times a year. I mean, I'm on the phone every 3-4 weeks with some pack of the guys like you, running around following the team, and it felt like the media, the fan base, everybody was all in. They make the deals, then they make a little bit of a weird push in September, and there's no A-Rod drama in the offseason. It's all about Sanchez in the offseason, and he gets banged up here in Baltimore, when it was still cold out, and you look up and they're playing 600 ball. I don't know why they wouldn't, quote-unquote, go for it if it means dealing a couple players and getting a pitcher here down the line.
And I'm sure they will. I think that's absolutely a plan. But, I mean, what you point out about last season, Nestor, is, you were right. They were tanking. They were basically saying, we're giving up. We're getting rid of Chapman. We're getting rid of Andrew Miller. The best part of our team is gone. We're going to get rid of the old guys. I don't think anybody expected them to do well the second half of the season, and they did. So that was unexpected. And then this year, you pointed out something else. Gary Sanchez, really hasn't done much so far this year. Greg Bird, who was expected to be, the heir to Mark Teixeira at first base, hasn't done anything. So they're doing this. This is why you have to take what they're doing with a little bit of skepticism. The fact that they've played this well without guys that they were depending on, Masahiro Tanaka pitching horribly, and they're still doing very well. So you got to figure at some point this is going to come back to normal a little bit. So, if you're an Orioles fan out there, I wouldn't lose hope yet. I think they're only like 2 games out or so. The Yankees may not be as good as they have looked, but I do think in the future they're going to be a very good team.
What do you love about the way this thing is structured at this point? Because it is so much different than it's ever been structured. I mean, I guess the one thing you must love is that George Steinbrenner's not there gumming things up, and I think that there's also we're gaining a new appreciation for Cashman. It's real easy to win when you're spending $200 million and everybody else is spending $60. Which went on for a decade.
It's also easy to spend money on the wrong things. I think we see that in every field. But I must take issue with you on not having George around. George was great copy. He really was. My fortunes don't rise and fall with the fortunes of the team. My fortunes rise and fall with do I have a good story or not? And George was an endless supply of good stories, and so was Alex. You said no Alex drama in the off season. Well, you know what? Alex carried me through many off seasons.
Yeah, baseball doesn't carry itself, Wally. Maybe that's part of the issue here. I mean, we have the same problem here you have there, right? Nobody's coming to the games, right? There's the way the games are presented on Masson here, it's so Pollyanna and so state-run. There is no criticism of anything Machado's hitting 210. You'd be frying his ass up in New York right now. He'd be getting blistered in Boston if this were the case, or Chicago, or
Without
LA.
a doubt. I mean,
he's getting a hall pass around
the
here.
Lovely welcome to Kobe Ellsbury has gotten since the day he arrived here.
Well, that's what happens when you get all the money. But in the case of the Yankees,
and you don't produce.
But it's hard to be down on them when they're playing 600 ball with a bunch of kids right now, right?
Well, that's the other thing. When the team's in first place, you'll sit there and you go, "Oh, gee, I could rip Chase Headley for those horrible 4 at bats, or I could rip Tanaka." But geez, they're still in first place. So am I going to look foolish here doing that? But the truth is the truth, and you can't just report the games in a vacuum. There are times when, even though the team is playing well, individuals are not. And, it's kind of a tough tightrope to walk, but that's what we do.
Aaron Judge, when do they begin the statue ceremony for him?
I think it's already, they're sculpting it out of a giant piece of marble right now. Oh, my God. This guy, I watched him last year. I saw his 2 months. I thought this guy would never be a productive major league hitter, just struck out too much, swung at the wrong pitches. It just seemed like he was an all-or-nothing guy. Dave Kingman, he's going to hit the ball, to Westchester County, or he's going to strike out. This year he's a different hitter, and it really, I'm not going to say that, that anything really has changed except for his pitch selection. It seems like he doesn't swing at things out of the strike zone anymore, and when he stays, within his zone, the guy makes good contact. When he makes good contact, you see what happens. I mean, he's a scary hitter, and that's the one thing that hasn't cooled off yet. I mean, he had a little bit of a downstroke, a downslope in early May, but right now with Mike Trout out, you look at who's the leading vote getter in the All-Star balloting, who's probably at this point the front runner for the AL MVP, assuming the Yankees continue to play well. Yeah, he's really the big story of the first half of the season.
Legendary New York sports writer Wally Matthews joining us here. He's the Oyster Bay Bomber out on Twitter, now covering the Yankees, a bit for the New York Times after many, many years at ESPN, Newsday, and many other places. You missed the circus a little bit, right? I mean, I look up and down this roster and I say Matt Holliday, Jacoby Ellsbury, Starlin Castro. There's no drama here like there is with LeBron or Steph Curry or Durant or, what's going on in other places. And part of that, and I know that, your newspaper reported a couple of weeks ago, and we see it every time we play the Yankees, all those gigantic, oversized airplane seats behind home plate sit there empty. They're $1,000 a piece. When I've run bus trips up to New York, Wally, there have been times I've run bus trips to New York and the tickets are $2 out in the bleachers to get in.
Yep.
Now they've made it more like $10 or $15 and less people are coming. And there's the whole sort of circus that is that stadium that is sort of the mall that became claim something legitimate from across the street. I've been up there many, many times since it's opened. I don't. Why do people not want to go to Yankees games? Is it really about not having the Reggie Jacksons and the Sparky Lyles and the Goose Gossages and sort of drama going on around it? Because it's a pretty clean team,
I think it's a number of factors. Now, let's start with the basics. I mean, it's a lot of money. It costs a hell of a lot of money to go to Yankee Stadium. You know, and the tickets are way overpriced. The stadium was obviously built for a different class of fans. There's no doubt about that. I mean, the stadium is 10,000 seats smaller than the old one. So they're telling you right there, you know, we're cutting out 10,000 people. And we're cutting out the 10,000 who are spending the most money. All right, so there are fewer affordable seats there. You know this as well as I do. A baseball game is no longer the kind of thing where you feel like in the afternoon, hey, I think I'll go to the ball game tonight, because you got to check your bank account first to see if you can buy a damn ticket. You know, so that's not going to happen. The second thing is, when you build that kind of a stadium and you charge that kind of money, you're basically selling star power. You know, you're not selling baseball anymore. You're selling, come see Derek Jeter, come see Alex Rodriguez, you know, come see CC Sabathia. Well, those guys aren't here anymore. Sabathia's still here, but he's on his way out. Now, you know, they're saying spend $1,200 for a ticket and come see a kid who played in AAA last year, and maybe he'll be good at some point. It's really a hard sell, and I think a lot of people who consider themselves, you know, real Yankee fans, hardcore Yankee fans, the bleacher people, you know, the guys who would go to the game on the spur of the moment, don't feel like Yankee Stadium is their place anymore. They feel the place is antiseptic, that it's quiet, that the fans really don't pay attention to the game. And
it's all of the above. That's all true, right? Every bit of that.
So it's all, you throw that all in. I mean, there's no one reason why the place is not selling out, but I think it all starts with the ticket pricing, and I think that sends a message to the fans that, you know, this is a place, this is an exclusive club, you know, and maybe you don't belong here, maybe we have a seat for you in your living room, you know, but it's not here in this ballpark, and I think fans get that message.
Baseball is dripped with arrogance for all of our lifetime, Wally, right? So, I mean, and I guess at this point, I look over at the Orioles, and, you know, they are announcing crowds at 15 and 20 when they're 6 and 8 and 10 there.
I love that. They do that here, too.
They've, you know, and it's fake news, and they've scattered the seats now to make the place look a little bit more full. They sort of sell every fifth seat to, you know, 4 people, and everybody gets room to spread out. If you look at any Oriole game, you'll see that they literally distribute the crowd throughout the ballpark.
So you're getting 2 seats for the price of 1, basically.
Well, you get a little elbow room. You know, you can put your bag down or whatever, you know, invite some friends over to sit with you or whatever. But the teams weren't built on that, right? I mean, the teams were built on, come on out, we want it to be full, we want it to be the place to be. But it is very ubiquitous now, right? It's on your phone. You can watch the game sitting anywhere you are, having a sandwich at any bar, on your phone, on the subway. The game sort of comes to you. There's no real reason to go to the game.
There may be less incentive for people to get up and go to the game because it's just so easy. You know, it's not like years ago you had to listen to Vince Scully on, you know, with a transistor radio up to your ear, you know, or go to Ebbets Field. At this point, you're right. You have a million ways to see what's going on in the game. A lot of times you're going to see it better on your TV screen than you're going to see it at the ballpark, depending on where they stick you. So, yeah, that could be part of it as well.
Cashman and Girardi, underrated? I mean, you're around him every day, and I see you have a little bit of fun with Girardi there, but, you know, this will be where they're measured. I don't think you get measured when you have all the best players. I think over the next 2 or 3 years, holding it together, signing the right players, many of these guys are going to hit the market, and they're certainly going to have the money. By the time 2019 comes around, there better be a parade somewhere up there in the next 36 months, right?
Well, it all depends on, you know, that's the real riddle here is like, you know, what goes through the mind of Hal Steinbrenner, right? He's very, very low-key. He is not like his father. I mean, obviously, you knew where George felt, you know, every minute of every day. There was no filter. Cashman, I would say, is like any other GM, only he has the stigma on him. Well, you can just go buy whatever you want. But not, you know, listen, you know this as well as I do. No GM has total autonomy. And, you know, they think that, you know, they like you to think that they can do whatever they want, but they always have to answer to somebody. And in the case of the Yankees, not only does Cashman make some decisions, but Randy Levine, the team president, has gotten involved in some decisions that Cashman was very much against. You know, I'll give you 2 examples, one of which worked out well for the Yankees and one of which didn't. The Alex Rodriguez contract extension in 2007. Cashman did not want to do it. I quoted him many times saying, if this guy opts out, we won't negotiate with him. That's it. We don't do that. You know, he'll either wait until the contract runs out and then we'll sit down with him, or he's gone. And he was overruled by Randy Levine and by Hank Steinbrenner. and they decided to give Alex 10 more years, and that didn't work out all that well. Now, the one where Levine did get involved that did work out was he decided he wanted to sign Rafael Soriano for 3 years at, closer-type money to be a setup man for Mariano Rivera. Well, what happened, Rivera tore his knee up, and they needed a closer, and they had Soriano there, and it worked. Randy Levine came out looking good. But these were two examples where the GM did not want to do something but was overruled. So when you look at the makeup of the Yankees, it's not always fair to say, well, this is Brian Cashman. It's not true. There are a couple of things he did not want to do, a couple of things he did want to do that they wouldn't allow him to do. Now, I don't think you can really criticize him, and my first reaction, Nestor, was to criticize him last year for dumping the two relief pitchers. But in the meantime, he stockpiled the farm system, and you're seeing the benefits of that now. So maybe and he got Chapman back in the offseason. So maybe that was a stroke of brilliance.
Can you give me a little rundown on a couple of these kids that aren't in the show that we've talked about, prospects that will be bandied about in the next couple of weeks, and also maybe on the team next year or in 2019? Who are? I mean, I heard about a dozen prospects last summer.
Well,
who's close
the
at this
big one
point?
obviously is Gleyber Torres. Everybody is very, very high on him. He's only recently been promoted from AA to AAA, but you had Yankee fans saying, bring him up now. We got to, get rid of Headley and put him at third base, which, would be a ridiculous idea. The guy's had about 8 games in AAA. But I think it's a possibility that we will see him after the trade deadline, especially if they move some people. Clint Frazier, I think, is a little bit further away. He's an outfielder. He's the kid who created a little controversy because he had long red hair. And, of course, we know the Yankees, don't go for that, and they made him cut his hair, and it was a whole public thing.
John Chaser would never get on the field. I watched him run around on Tuesday night here at the Pirates with the dreads.
Yeah, no, and the Mets pitching staff could never pitch in the Yankees looking that way. But you know what? And I've had this talk with them. I kind of like the fact that they stick with that because now they look different. They used to be like the conventional-looking team. They're the ones who look different from everybody else. Every other team, it just lets, anybody, grow their hair and beards, and that's fine with me. But I think the Yankees have, their own identity now. We're the clean-cut stockbroker team here, and it's, it's good that there's one team that's a little bit different.
Tanaka, they're going to – I'm sorry. Say that again?
I'm sorry. I was going to say Jorge Mateo is the other guy that they're high on. He's an infielder, but I kind of think that he's been leapfrogged by Gleyber Torres, so I don't think we're going to see him right away. Other than that, they got a couple of pitchers down there, a kid named Chance Adams that people are high on that we might see. The farm system is unusually stocked for them. Generally, it's bereft of anything, which is why they can never make any deals. But now I think they've given themselves that luxury.
They're going to see Tanaka on Sunday, and, man, I remember when he came up, I just thought, wow, this guy's incredible. Then he got hurt, and it really has never been the same. And, we have our issues here with Jimenez and trying to figure out Gausman and getting Tillman right. Everybody's Red Sox trying to get themselves right. But, what are they going to do with Tanaka? Because we've battled that for 3.5 years with Jimenez. When a guy you're paying a lot of money to struggles, I think here the owner wants to see his $14 million guy out there every fifth day more than the manager does.
Well, we're waiting to find out the answer what they're going to do. They're hedging on this. It's funny because they insist that he's healthy, and they also insist that, you don't just forget how to pitch overnight. Well, to me, it's one or the other. He's either hurt or he's forgotten how to pitch overnight. There's no third answer, You just don't lose your effectiveness as drastically as he has that quickly, if everything is okay. I think that the elbow injury definitely is a factor. They use his velocity because his velocity hasn't changed. He hits 91, 92 on his fastball. That's not really the measure of whether he's healthy or not. The measure is whether that splitter is moving down, and it's not. And when that sits in the strike zone, you know what it is? It's a mediocre, it's a batting practice fastball. And you see the way, the Red Sox launched a couple the other day off him. Giving up, I believe, 17 home runs in his last 12 games, which is not a good ratio. It's not like he's being victimized by, fluke hits. He's getting killed. I mean, he's getting hit really, really hard. And, the Yankees seem to want to, their position is it's a mechanical tweak here or there, but this seems like way too much of a decline for it to be something as simple as that.
He is Wally Matthews. He is the Oyster Bay Bomber out on Twitter. You can follow him, legendary New York sports writer, now covering the Yankees for the New York Times. And meanwhile, it could be worse, dude. You could be over at Citi Field following this Mets drama, although for drama, it's there.
I've been there quite. I was there the night Mr. Met flipped the bird.
Oh,
I get all the good nights. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it is a different juxtaposition here 2 years later after the Mets went on their little run. And the Mets were supposed to be coming into the new New York baseball spring, and they've just fallen flat. I mean, that looks like a mess over there.
Yeah, but this is an easy one to pinpoint. I mean, they came into the season with 4 starting pitchers that were supposed to be Cy Young candidates, and they're all hurt. And the one that isn't hurt, DeGrom, is just pitching awful. So that's the end of your story right there. If pitching takes you out of the game early, it doesn't matter, what you got in your lineup. Plus, they've had Cespedes on the DL for a long time. Probably not going to see David Wright very much at all this year, if at all. So, yeah, I mean, that's it. But, pitching is the name of the game. Well, you got guys, you have Syndergaard, DeGrom, Matt Harvey, Zach Wheeler, Steven Matz, Seth Lugo. You think you got a hell of a pitching staff, and then, 3 of them get hurt. One of them goes on a bender and doesn't come to work one day, and then DeGrom suddenly can't get anybody out. Guess what? Look at your record.
Do you enjoy going to Citi Field more than Yankee Stadium? I do, as a fan. And
only financially, because I don't have to cross a bridge and they don't charge you to park.
Well, I just think it's a better
it's a
experience.
terrible place to work, quite honestly. I don't know if you've been there, but in the press box, it's just like it was very poorly designed. This is purely a first world problem, purely a journalist problem.
Press box,
really
Wally, I haven't had one of those in 11 years since Mr. Angelos decided
That's right, I forgot.
that I was fake news.
Mr. Angelos sorted that. That's right.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
I can get credentialed anywhere the Orioles don't play. So, if I asked the Mets for a credential for, a Mets-Phillies game, I would get one. But if the Orioles are there...
but you'll need a roadmap to get from your car to the press box.
That's okay. I like the experience of going to a game there far more, and I don't know what an Eagles concert's going to look like there, but I know what a hockey game looks like up in the Bronx. So, hey, great to visit with you.
You're going to see a hockey game there this year.
Oh, that's right.
Next. Yeah.
Yeah, well,
so
Super Bowl.
You'll get the contrasting experience, the Flushing experience.
Yeah, a couple years ago, they during the Super Bowl, they had all those games going on up there. It was about 5 degrees every night, and the Devils are playing the Islanders, and I'm like, oh boy, Islanders. There's a whole other problem.
It's a lot of fun to watch that game from your living room.
Well, I'm a Caps fan, so I'm all down on the Penguins right now, as you can well imagine. So, Wally, take care of yourself, man. I loved having you on, and I love your work all these years. I didn't even ask you anything about boxing. You got anything you want to say about boxing in 2017?
Yes, I still like it. No, I'm looking forward to Canelo and Triple G in September. I think that's a good fight, and I think that Anthony Joshua may bring some life back to the heavyweight division, and if he does, that might actually bring some life back to boxing.
What's your favorite boxing memory of you being at an event, because you covered them all? What's your favorite story to tell?
Oh, geez. It's probably either the time Mike Tyson knocked out one of Mitch Green's teeth and it landed on my scorecard at Madison Square Garden, or
nice.
The time I followed the chunk of Holyfield's ear in a tray of ice to Valley Hospital in Las Vegas, where they were going to try to reattach it. Unfortunately, they weren't able to.
I want to read your book, Wally.
Okay, I better start writing it.
That's an endorsement right there for the book. Great to have you on. Thanks for the time. Very valuable. Always loved your work, and we'll be reading you out on Twitter.
Thanks, Ness. I'll see you.
You got it. Wally Matthews joining us here. He's the Oyster Bay Bomber out on Twitter, and legend up in New York, writing columns and baseball and boxing and parts of ears and all sorts of things over the years. Oyster Bay Bomber out on Twitter. Wallace Matthews, the man, the myth, the legend. Great of him to come on with us. Always love having those kinds of dudes on with that sort of institutional knowledge, plus great sense of humor as well. You can find me out in the Buy a Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world, on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn Radio app. We do come in crystal clear from anywhere in the world. Our morning newspaper ships to your email inbox at 7 a.m. That's all brought to you by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com. That's $10 a month. And it is bikini season, so get out there, get yourself into beach shape if you're heading down the ocean this summer. Stop at Planet Fitness a couple times a week, and you'll be looking and feeling a lot better. Last but never least, any breaking news that happens from the Ravens. the Orioles, the ups, the downs. It all comes to you first on the WNST text service. That's brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. I am Nestor. I'm out on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on our Facebook as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. We are releasing the Peter Principles this weekend, chapter by chapter, all summer long. You can go out to our social media and find that, or find it on the front of the website or the newspaper, anywhere WNST is served. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.